Hello and good day to you, my beautiful friends. I do hope you are well. Welcome to episode 53 of Cross-Button VR, our journey into the world of PSVR2, a show for those who want to share in our love for the world of VR. Now, I'm your host, Laurie, and if you didn't know already, we are part of the Cross Players. So, if you like what you hear, check out the links to all of our stuff in the description for this episode. Now, it is an honour to be joined by two of the slickest influencers in the metaverse. It's Reese and Alex, and we are thrilled to be joined by a genuinely massive VR influencer this time. It's Myles Dyer.
Hello.
Howdy.
Hello, Myles. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's been quite the week. We were all reflecting on year one, and then all of a sudden there's a lot that's been laid out for the start of year two.
Yeah.
I think it's been a good week for us PSVR2 users, and I'm looking forward to chatting about it.
Definitely. So obviously last week we did our episode looking back on year one, as you said, and that was kind of the first of a two-part episode. We sort of chucked out our usual agenda and things that we usually do in the show, focused on year one, and this year, this episode, we're talking all about year two, what we hope to see, and as you say, we've had some news this week, so we can go over that. But first of all, Myles, it'd be great just for people that somehow don't know who you are in the world of PSVR2. I'd be shocked if anyone listening to this doesn't. But just if you just want to introduce yourself and tell us what you do and where you're from and what you're all about.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Myles. I'm a massive PSVR2 fan. I was actually once just an adopter of PSVR. It was my first step into sort of domestic VR space. And I've been searching on YouTube for reviews, and I came across this channel called PSVR Without Parole. And so was a watcher of theirs, started tuning into their Gamescast Live, and I think it was April of 2022. They had a bit of a switch around, and they were going with three co-hosts with Brian Paul, who runs it all, for Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays. And I'd done a couple of guest slots on there, and he asked if I wanted to jump on, which I was definitely up for, and I said on one condition: I get to do the Friday slots because I'm in the UK, and for them it's 6 o'clock in the evening, whereas for in the UK it's 11 o'clock at night, and I want to be able to have a line in the morning. So yeah, I've been doing that for a couple of years now, and sort of my background is I've been a YouTube content creator since 2006. I'm a first generation YouTuber, and I've gone through all the sort of genres of content. I started off doing proper cringe comedy sketches. I then went into sort of the realms of mental health and well-being, something that I like to cover a lot even to today because I think it's important. Even going through my activist stages, and these are all things that are sort of still a part of my DNA. But despite also working as a content strategist as my full-time job, and I've worked for a lot of media organisations over the years, I've never really practiced what I preach with my own channel, because what you should do is have a really strategic show format that you do every week. And for 16, 17 years my YouTube channel has just been a big mess because I kind of just upload what I want to do. But beginning of last year, I was invited to go to Fast Travel Games in Sweden, in which I got to check out the PSVR2 early, and it was the first time I'd done one of these things. Brian actually couldn't make it, and so he sent me out there. And I got to meet with a lot of fellow VR content creators, a lot of people that I'd known for a couple of years. And it kind of dawned on me that although I do Without Parole and I very much love it, I need to think about what I'm doing on my own channel, because at that point I was just doing a weekly talk show, which I still do now, called Myles Dyer Live, very creative name, where I talk about all sorts from entertainment to world events and that. And I sort of went away thinking, what sort of VR content could I do for my channel? And then Sony reached out in the UK and offered me a review headset ahead of launch, and then it kind of dawned on me like, wow, I'm being taken seriously, because I honestly just felt like, a co-host on Without Parole, which is obviously a great show, but I thought that was kind of all, in terms of my own platform, am I sort of seen as someone that could be a voice for PSVR2? And so off the back of it, I started testing with live streaming, and Brian on the channel, he does his great feature pieces and reviews. His reviews I always like watching, and was why I was drawn to the channel in the first place. And so I just thought about what could I do, and so I decided to do Let's Plays, and it started off as just doing a handful of Let's Plays, and then I kind of imposed on myself this ridiculous mission to Let's Play every single PSVR2 game out there. And it sort of became this sort of funny joke, and I thought, you know what, let's go for it. And so all of last year, besides working a full-time job, I basically said goodbye to all my evenings and weekends, because if you're not doing the live streams, you're at least doing all the titles and descriptions, or doing all the tagging and all the boring stuff. But yeah, here we are, and I've done 170 at the moment. I think there's like 2 that I still need to do, but I'm currently not living at home at the moment. Just got some work being done on my place, and so it's going to be a couple of weeks until I get back to doing the Let's Plays. But it's been an amazing journey. I think the last year has really sort of come full circle, because although I've been a content creator for 17 years, I've been a gamer longer than that, but I've never really found a way of doing gaming content that I was comfortable with. And doing Let's Plays, I love live streaming. I like the spontaneity of it, and I like the laziness of once you've done a live stream, you don't have to do any editing afterwards. And so, and also it complements what Without Parole does, because they do some Let's Plays, but they focus on the features. So yeah, I was trying to make that a summary, but it was a bit of a deep dive.
No, thank you. That's
kind
great.
of the context.
And obviously, it's working for you. You've got nearly just under 50,000 followers on YouTube. Subscribers?
Yeah. That in itself has a bit of a weird story. So I hit 50k about 8 years ago, and then I took this long hiatus, and then basically, and not getting too much into content strategy, if you start making different content, or you have an old channel as old as mine, as you start making content, you lose subscribers, because there are like dead accounts, or people are like, oh, I'm not into this content anymore, or I've changed my preferences. All totally understandable things. And so there was a bit of a joke last year where I kept saying on Without Parole on Fridays, Brian, I'm 10 subscribers away from 48,000, and I'd get over it, and every time I got over it, I would then have a massive go back to towards 47,000. So it's been this give and throw. However, the last 3 months, since November of last year, I'm now no longer having a net loss of subscribers, and it is just because I've now sort of really sort of tapped into the to the VR space, and all the algorithm stuff and that. But yeah, no, it's been a long journey, and I'm loving it.
I remember when before the headset came out, it was your video and Fast Travel Games. It must have been that one because we were all, so Alex and Ben and myself were all looking for videos for previews and stuff before it came out. So is this going to be worth getting? Is this going to be worth getting? So yeah, I particularly remember your video just coming away really impressed with it and stuff.
It was a really interesting trip out there, because the premise was, understandably, Fast Travel Games had new games to show us, and one of them was Cities VR on the PSVR2, and so it was sort of a question of this is 4 weeks before it's coming out. I think it was more than that, and can we put it on camera and stuff? And I know some people were just we'll just do what we can get away with. I was so paranoid of not wanting to mess anything up, and they were just you're allowed to in that. And so people were doing content with them just wearing it, and I thought, let's just do a hands-on. And also because I'd never done sort of and I knew that it was going to be one of the first videos of someone holding it, and I felt a lot of pressure because I think of the Digital Foundries, or even people like Ian Higton from Eurogamer, people I greatly respect and have been in the game longer than me. I didn't want to be holding it and just being a blubbering mess going, well, it's a headset, and it's white, and it's but I kind of feel like the sort of the candid nature that I just did it kind of appealed to people, because it didn't feel contrived, and I just looked like an excited person, like all of you guys would be doing it as well, and just going this is what it looks like. And the question at the time was is the cable detachable, and stuff like that. But it was really quite something. And actually, the last thing I'd say about that trip is I got to play an early build with Fast Travel Games of the game that has been announced, Mannequin, and it was a really early build. And it's been one of my most anticipated PSVR2 games since before the PSVR2 has come out.
That's crazy.
And so I think on Quest now there is a demo, and I know a lot of creators have been playing it who are saying it's amazing now. I haven't actually seen how the latest builds look, but that is a game that I can't wait for it to come out, because it's just asymmetric, Intruder-esque multiplayer. And so it's Fast Travel Games have gone on quite an interesting route, because they've really been knocking out the park this generation with quite a variety of games as well, as a publisher as well as a developer. So yeah, because
we did touch on that quite a bit last week when we kind of went over year one, and there was a period where
between like Vampire the Masquerade, Ghost Signal, that kind of period of quite an intense period. They just had a few games at a time, and they were like this is our turn, and they totally took it with both hands, and it was nice to see.
Yeah, and I just really appreciate it because the reality is PSVR2 is a difficult ecosystem. It's the chicken or egg of developers are really holding the fort, and I'm sure we'll have a massive discussion about Sony and how they do with marketing and that, but they have to really rely heavily on the community, people like you that are speaking to the community and for the community and about all these releases. It's a very costly endeavour, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of the big first party developers we want to see in the space aren't doing it, because if you can make it for 50 million people on flat screen, or I know we could do hybrid or specialise on VR, it's still not seen as a worthy investment. And when you've got people like Fast Travel Games, when you've got people like Perk Games that have been doing all their publishing stuff, I have so much love for the devs and the content creators and that, because I think often we forget like it's a very difficult time at the moment, as we see in the gaming industry with redundancies and that across the board.
Oh yeah, the risk for everyone making a game is just massive. Either it's a flop or just no one buys it. It's just kind of an indie game that never takes off. The risks, just the bravery you need to make something, and then to make that for VR. Yeah, they are just kind of true heroes. They've got that kind of love of the genre, and I think every developer we've had on to talk to over the last year, that's been one of my favourite things about doing this podcast, is having the developers on to talk about the games, and you just realise their love of the medium and just being able to do something new and different, and that they are kind of finding new ways to do things and working things out, and it just must be kind of really exciting as well as scary for them.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you do that, because a lot of developers are, like most people, there's an expectation in a lot of jobs these days that you've got to be not media trained but happy to go on camera. Some people just don't want to be on camera, and a lot of devs they want to make games and then move on to the next thing. And when they are indie developers where they perhaps don't have a marketing department, or the budget to employ an influencer or a face to be of it, I can only imagine how difficult it is. They put out a game and then they just see like the internet just take off with judgment and criticisms, rightly or wrongly, and so definitely something I always try and bring to the conversation, especially on Without Parole, is this idea of compassion. And I sometimes get criticised of, it's Myles saying let off the developers because they'll patch it. I've never been that way. All I say is that either they could release a game, and if it's not good enough, just go, all right, we're moving on. But if they do say, hey, we're listening and we're going to make it, I think you've got to give people credit. But ultimately, yes, games should come out in top tip quality, and there have been a lot of questionable releases this past year, where games, Hellsweeper comes to mind straight away, which is a game that I had so much fun on despite it looking like you were looking through treacle. I couldn't believe how bad it looked in the headset, but
looks a little bit better now.
Yeah, is it? Yeah, I need to jump back into it.
Yeah, it does look a little bit better.
I know exactly what you're saying, and there's been so few games where it's been like Vertigo 2, where there's been bits of it that I thought, this isn't quite as polished as I'd like it, but then I have to say, but it's like one guy's made this game, which is incredible. I don't understand how one person can do all of this. So, like, it's incredible. I feel so bad criticising any element of it, because the idea that one person on their own could do something like that is just magic. It's crazy.
But at the same time, people have to put their hands in their pockets, and this is what, why I started looking at VR content in the early days, which is there are all these games and experiences. And the way I always talk about it when it comes to VR versus flat screen games is, I always say, like, gaming is quite a personal thing. We have genres we're into different types of games and styles and mechanics, but like VR is more personal, because you're basically saying, I'm putting my hand in my pocket to pay for a game, to live in their world. I'm actually going to exist. I'm like plugging myself into the Matrix to go inside it. And so even if it is done by one person, if it's not good enough, it's like, that's not an excuse, then it shouldn't have been released yet. And I know you're not saying that, because on the flip side, like, I have nothing but like respect, and I mean, any developer, it's all alchemy to me. I don't know how they do it.
Confuses the hell out of me.
But I think Vertigo 2 was probably the perfect example of the right way to do it. They were like, right, we know there's issues, we know we're going to just take another couple of weeks, and they took another couple of weeks, and I think at least appreciating that, being open and transparent about it and taking the time is going to do you more good in the long run than it is to rush it out there and just have this immediate barrage of. I mean, that's the wonders of social media these days. Is if you put a bad game out there, then you're almost signing your death warrant at that point in time, which is a shame and it's a horrible place to be at times.
And we also often don't know what the conversations are happening behind the scenes, like when it comes to, you know, Sony, if they're publishing it or, you know, it's one of their games. Like I think about it with Switchback. To what extent are the devs going, you know, you can't just keep pushing back deadlines, and there has to be that conversation if, like, Sony are saying it has to be out at this point, you know, all right, well, we'll patch it afterwards, but they know they are going to fix it. And Alejandro, who was behind Switchback, I met him at WASD, IGN's event at the end of last year, and I just said, I've got these questions for you. And he just said that, you know, when they were patching Switchback, they were able to get a patch out pretty quickly, but they said, no, we're not putting it out. It's going out once we fixed, you know, everything. And they you know, I'm sure there might be something missing, but they did. The patch, it was just ridiculous, like how much they'd overhauled it and stuff like that. So I think we held off and we only reviewed it after that big patch had landed. And I think it's a great game. I think it's really good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Myles, we could talk about VR, the medium review, all night long, but we should try and get to the topic at some point. Before we do though, I just want to ask you, what is your one favourite VR experience, if you had to think that's the moment that sums up why you love the medium? Your stand up.
Oh my goodness! I feel like I should have.
Going to say Mastermind.
Mastermind, I love, man. I want to go for the platinum on that, but I just can't get the 5. Is it 5 or 3 stars you're going for? Whatever the max stars is, I just can't do it on that game. I mean, I can think of 2 experiences right from the start that made me feel like giddy. Like I was laughing because I was blown away by how good it looked. First one was Kayak VR. Like that opening when you're in a swimming pool is just, I couldn't believe how good it looked. And I'd already played Cities VR on PSVR2, so I'd already been in the headset, but I also knew that Cities VR isn't going to be the most exemplary of what it's capable of. I still to this day think Kayak VR is just remarkable. Like when we think of like water physics, and I think that's a 2-person team, just unbelievable. And then Gran Turismo 7. I'm not a particularly, you know, massive driving fan, but I got the driving rig to do it, and I just remember as I did that first turning, I felt myself getting pushed into the side because you're used to feeling G-force, and it's all the things like, you know, as you're taking a corner on a road, you can look out the right window into where you're turning, and it's kind of like, that's just a really good example of like what VR does. Is it opens your horizons of what's possible. So those are the 2 games, you know, from the get-go that really made me giddy and think, wow, you know, we're in the future. But if I was to give something a bit more recently, I never played Red Matter on PSVR. I played Red Matter 2 a bit when it came out on PSVR 2, and then I thought, I want to play Red Matter before I continue with this, and then I played Red Matter, and then I went back to Red Matter PSVR 2. So if I was to put them together, I definitely think Red Matter 2 is something that every PSVR 2 owner needs to experience, because this will come back to our conversation later about like looking forward, but I do think that PSVR 2 is future-proof as tech, because in Red Matter 2, when you're looking at faces up close or any objects, it is so clear. And obviously that clarity is never with everything else in your environment, and that is not because of the headset, because you in the headset that is clear. So clarity in terms of those lenses is achievable. It's everything else. It's, you know, devs getting their hands on what it's capable of. It's also the limitations of the PS5, even though it's a good console. So PS5 Pro and the PlayStation, if that comes out, and the PlayStation 6. I think the PSVR 2 is going to have a long runway, and Red Matter 2, I think, is something that shows you what the future is going to look like.
Yeah, definitely. It's proof that you can achieve basically almost photorealism with it. So you don't really need any more from the headset. Now it's just the games that make the most of it.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you. So we had a few days ago. It was the first anniversary, and everyone was thinking, oh, is Sony going to announce anything? Is it going to be in news? And luckily they did, otherwise these shows for everyone's doing would have been a bit of a damn script. But they put out an anniversary blog post celebrating first year, and they were just talking about some of the highlights of year one, talking about the fact they've recently announced Metro Awakening and Legendary Tales, and then they had a bunch of new reveals. So they had The Wizards, Dark Times, Brotherhood. I'll just run through them all very quickly. So that's a new game, and that was a shadow drop, which is out straight away. That was a port of a PSVR game, wasn't it? Is that new co-op mode added to it?
I think it's just an enhanced version. I know that it's on
Just
Quest
enhanced.
at the moment as well, so I think it might be enhanced from the Quest version, because there's the Wizards and then there's the Wizards Dark Times.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's like a sequel to the Wizards. Yeah.
So
Well,
is that,
do you know?
I don't, and I have had a copy of it, and I've not touched it yet, because I've not been able to. But I've been told that the co-op is not the same as the main mode. I think, or something like that, because I think Brian was telling me that you just want to be able to play the main game co-op with your friends, so it's like its own thing, which is still good, but yeah. So I'm yet to check it out.
yeah, I'm the same. It's been a few days. I think already next week we'll try and get around to having a go on all of these where we can, and we'll have more of our thoughts as normal, as we normally would next week's episode. There was also finally a release date for Wanderer and a new trailer for Wanderer: The Fragments of Fate. And oh man, this is easily my most anticipated game on the headset. And that trailer just looks so cool. Myles, did you play the original of this on PS4?
I did. I didn't complete it. I think I got quite near to the end. But this is something when you just see the initial trailers, and it was something that we always wanted to get ported to PSVR2. Because it was at the tail end of PSVR, and it's one of those things, when it comes to the tail end, you're like, just bring it across. And so the fact that they were saying, actually, we are overhauling it, I say cautiously, because devs might say it's not technically an overhaul, but they're doing a lot with it. And so when you see what they managed to achieve with PSVR, it just makes me excited to know. Because obviously you see stuff in trailers, but with headset rumble and the sense controllers and the eye tracking, it's going to be incredible. Yeah,
I feel like Sony are going to push this quite a lot now over the coming months, because it looks like a real premium experience for it. And they also just dropped in at the end of the trailer a surprise announcement for a sequel as well.
Yeah.
A pirate themed one, which was very surprised that you've announced that before.
I'm surprised that as well. You'd think devs would want to give themselves a bit more runway. Let's get this out the door. But obviously, while people are looking at it, I guess it's kind of cool, because it means now anyone that's investing in this game have in mind that there is going to be a sequel. So awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And I wonder if that's quite far along, or have they been developing it in parallel? Is it not the case that they're going to finish this and then start developing on that game, and it's going to be years away? Is it the case that actually they've got one team porting this across whilst another team is already started work on the sequel?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Next up on the blog, they had Little Cities Bigger, which is a port of I don't know. I always say this port. I don't know. I can never keep track of if it's just from Quest or if it's PlayStation VR. Thank you. That's where we see it.
and it's the full game so it's basically all the support of the Quest game plus like the year. I think it's about a year and a half of being on Quest of all the content that's coming with it in one package, and it's a much loved game on Quest. It's got a lovely little community and stuff, so I think this is another one like that city builder. People love that kind of thing.
It's out on March the 12th as well.
Yeah, it's published by Dreams as well, so they tend to give us good things.
They do.
Yeah, no, it looks excellent. It looks like a lot of fun and quirky. It looks kind of like, sort of a whole lot of the SimCity vibes from when you were a kid. A lot of that.
Yeah, it's definitely, because I played it on Quest when I was at Dreams, and I was a big fan of the Cities VR that Fast Travel Games had done, and they feel like they scratched different itches of it. Like Cities VR is the big SimCity style, whereas this is like, it is that, but it's much more cozy and local. So you're sort of building your own mini town, and there's also like a map creator in it, so you can actually create your own, which obviously SimCity used to allow you to do and stuff, so you can create the terrain. And it also makes me hopeful now, because there was always questions when visiting of little cities, is that coming to PSVR2? And they're like, we have nothing to confirm at the moment, or it's not in our plans. And it was also
the normal
Power Wash Simulator,
Yeah.
wanting that to come to PSVR2, especially because Power Wash Simulator on PlayStation has the Final Fantasy VII, like, you clean one of the, I can't remember what the enemy is from Midgar, but oh man, especially with Rebirth just around the corner, that'd be amazing. But obviously that's not what
it needs to come. Like it needs to come to PSVR 2 because that game itself it's just transformed in VR. It's like we were talking about. So we recorded the Quest episode earlier in the week, and we were talking about this, and because we're also talking about Lawnmower Simulator coming to Quest, we were like, Power Wash Simulator can completely see how that works. Lawnmower, not so much. I'm very intrigued to see it, but Power Wash Simulator, just for that experience, that social element of it, and the multiplayer as well, and you're just like, it needs to come to PSVR 2. It would be a crying shame if it doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will do. Next up, there was a reveal for Zombie Army VR, which is the Zombie Army franchise brought to VR for the first time. And this has got a two-player co-op game campaign as well. It's like a World War II with zombies, basically.
Yeah.
A trailer. If you say World War II with zombies, imagine that sort of game that conjures up, and that's exactly what it is. It looks good fun.
Reese gets excited.
I'm very excited, and not just because of the game it is, but also because it's made by XR, the people that made Zombieland. And that right there, just when I found out they're developing it, I just like, yep, okay, even more excited than I was before.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I've always felt Zombieland is one of like the unsung heroes of PSVR 2 so far. When it came out the gate, I was the only one without parole telling people like this is definitely like a top 20 contender. I mean, I think it did get on the top 20 list, but the feel of the guns on that and like the polish, they really know how to do things.
Yeah,
and
you were...
Sorry, yeah.
I was going to say Alex was a big fan of that as well for us, weren't you, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, right at the beginning, that was one of the first games that I picked up, and it just had a lovely feel to it, but a great humour amongst it as well. It's a great times with that.
Yeah,
had that one more level kind of vibe to it as well. Like you'd finish, you go, nah, I could do better than that. And you'd go again, and you'd be on it for hours. I remember playing it like 2 a.m. on a work night as well. So yeah,
I never imagined going through a level of zombies getting dildos fired at me. I
was going to bring up the head party, and I thought, no, I'll leave that out.
Yeah. But it really speaks to them as a developer as well, because they could have just ported it from Quest, but they literally overhauled it. Like it got a really good PSVR 2 version with all these extra modes. They had that kind of like arcadey roguelite mode added at the end, which was amazing. But yeah, it's got XR, and then also you got obviously Rebellion behind this. I actually played the flat screen Zombie Army game a few years ago, and I was just like, it was around the time Sniper Elite came out to PSVR, and I was just like, I wish this game.
4 of them now, isn't there?
Yes, that's it. That was it. Yeah, and so I was like, I wish this come to VR. So I actually think that this is a massive thing. I haven't actually double checked. It's a brand new game, isn't it? It's not.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen it on Quest yet. Or anything like that, so I think it is.
Yeah, it's a brand new game for all. It's coming to all headsets, but it is a brand new.
Excellent.
So yeah, so another one to look forward to. No date on that one. It's just out 2024. So just this year at some point. So we'll be year 2. And then there was a free update DLC for Arizona Sunshine 2, which was a nice surprise. I don't think anyone was expecting. I don't know, had they mentioned there was going to be a roadmap of content? I don't know.
I think they said that there were going to be more Horde mode maps coming out, but they hadn't really said anything more than that. What was funny was my mate said to me, cool, do you want to play some Arizona Sunshine? Do you want to play some of the DLC tonight? And then he was like, it's just the new dog. Like, that's the first update. The next map is out next month. I was like, well, I said I'm all right.
But yeah, I mean, they know what they're doing though, because the marketing images they put together with that corgi in all of the shots and stuff, it's genius. It's like, I want to play that game again.
Maybe want to
that little dog running through. Yeah, it just changes the atmosphere with it, because obviously the normal Buddy is a big dog, and just changing that for like a little yappy corgi.
You have to get on your knees,
hilarious.
put your guns on its side.
Yeah.
Yeah, how's it going to carry on?
I know.
Amazing.
I hope they've added an element just to weigh it down, the more weight you put on it. That would be hilarious. Sorry, I'll take a couple off you now. I feel bad.
Yeah,
maybe it's going to get a doggy buggy.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
Yeah, you just walk around with it in the trolley.
All.
But I think that was one of the few complaints about Arizona Sunshine 2 is that it had that horde mode, but it was only one map, wasn't it? And I think it was the same map from Arizona Sunshine 1.
Yeah. And you can only walk around like the square. Like you can't. It's like you're on a sort of this shelter and wooden floor, and you have to be within that area, so you can't like run about. Which, I mean, I understand they would have made a decision why that is, but I thought it felt very like last gen in terms of VR.
I only remember the mine hold level being quite a big one on the first Arizona Sunshine. I remember the other hold mode levels being quite small and quite a squared area as well. So hopefully they're doing like the mine one again, because that's it. Yeah, that was a good one.
The one thing about Arizona Sunshine 2 though is like it's a game that I would love to grind for the platinum trophy, but I've been hearing, I don't know if they ever fixed it, but one of the trophies is you got to complete it on the hardest difficulty. And there were people completing it on the hardest difficulty, and it was glitched. It didn't pop. And dude, that is the kind of thing.
So I'm paused now. I'm not going. I've not went back to it. So now you've said that, I'm not going to go back to it. So I'm going to have to look into that before playing it again, because I think I'm like 70% of the way through on the hardest.
Right.
So yeah. Thanks for that.
Wow. Yeah. Definitely check it out, dude. I'd be gutted for anyone that has had to experience that, because I can even feel the sinking feeling in me of doing that and going, when you finally do it and it doesn't pop. Yeah, because we obviously don't do it for the actual sense of achievement, do we? We do it for that ding.
Yeah.
It's all about the trophies, isn't it, Laurie?
Yeah. Laurie loves trophies. He's got
some of us don't do it at all, Myles.
I respect that. I respect that.
Yeah, if there was a way to turn off the whole trophy ecosystem, I would.
No.
I mean, I got quite excited tonight when I turned my PlayStation on and I got a trophy, and it's like, oh, that's a new thing, and they must have updated the beta again, and all the notifications have changed, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty. I'm like,
oh well, maybe that'll change my mind. Anyway. So yeah, but I mean that's good. Then the horde maps for Arizona Sunshine 2, they're coming out in March and April and May, so kind of nice kind of cadence there. Hopefully that'll keep people invested and they'll give them a reason to come back over the next few months. Definitely one of the highlights I think of year one, that game. Hopefully it attracts more people to play it. I know some people had a issue with the price when it came out, so I'm sure it'll be on sale. Has it been on sale yet? Must have.
I think it has.
It has. Yeah, I think the collector's edition was, or something like that. I think it's like 20% off.
Yeah, so well worth picking up. And then the final thing they included was there's just a small mention of Soul Covenant, which is literally just some screenshots for it, and there was some new information in some blurb, but I kind of read it and I was like, I can't work out what's new here and what's going on, but it's a kind of melee-based combat type JRPG type thing. The screenshots of it all just look completely batshit. I mean, I love the look of it, but I just I'm not going to have a clue what is going on in this game. It's such a JRPG.
Not the first time that one's been showed though either, because that was on the VR showcase at EGX as well. So and it's kind of went quiet since then. But I thought the gameplay looked really good before, so I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm curious to see, because I actually was quite late to Altair Breaker on PSVR2, and that game, like, when you first dive into it, is incredible. I feel like I'm in a Final Fantasy game. Someone told me, and no one quote me on this because this could be complete fake news, but I believe the soundtrack was done by the guy that composed the music for Mario Smash Brothers. And actually, when you hear it, I mean, it definitely you get that epic feel. But the game is great because you can hit the enemies into the air and it goes slow mo, and then you can literally go up to them and you feel like you're in a Final Fantasy game. Can imagine me and Cloud doing Omni Slash with the Buster Sword. But the problem with the game was you're then just going through the same 6 environments, grinding away for the same boss, and it was just you've done the hard work, you've built the mechanics, you've built this. Just have some different. And I know it's more than just putting some enemy types, but it does make me quite cautious about Soul Covenant. How is it going to be a fully fleshed out game, or is it going to be another repetitive grind fest? But I know at very least it will have really satisfying combat mechanics.
Yeah, as long as it has a good gameplay loop, I'll be happy. And I think that's the thing with a lot of VR games, is they kind of rely on a gameplay loop as opposed to having a fully fledged story. And as long as it has that, then I'll be happy. But if not, I struggle to go back to something that doesn't have a good gameplay loop.
Good stuff. So, I mean, that was the blog then, and obviously we had the State of Play a couple of weeks ago that had Metro VR featured in it. That is also coming up. So how do we feel then? That's kind of what Sony are choosing to showcase at this time, either on their blog or their state of play, going into year 2 then.
I mean, there's a lot to come, but I think the key thing is there's not a lot to come from Sony, and that's been the case since what was it, launch? Really? I mean, obviously they've published a couple of games, but they've not, first party studio wise, there's been nothing else.
I think Firewall Ultra was the closest, wasn't it? As the first, second party, I guess that was.
And it makes it an easy target. I think you're getting all this negative press and all this people, Sony aren't committed to platform, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. And even with the bit you never mentioned on the blog post around the working on PCVR compatibility.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
You avoided that bit, didn't you?
Sorry, I was going to talk about that as the other things.
Worried what everyone would say.
I was focusing on the games, but go on, let's cover that off.
But even on that point, people are using that as well. Clearly, Sony don't want to make games, so they're just making other games available on the headset, and you're just like, no. They're just like, for me, that whole point is making it more competitive with a Quest or something like that. You're just opening it up to more platforms, because this headset, as Myles kind of said earlier, the technology is there, it's future-proof. It's probably then when you make that compatible with PCE, it's one of the top PCVR headsets as well, so it just gets the best of both worlds.
People saying they're making more games available on the headset. Like, I don't have a PC, so it's kind of useless for me. I'm not going to have to play.
It's kind of mixed what everyone seems to think is going to happen, though, because some people think it's going to be like plugging into your PC, but then also that person who's been trying to mod it so his PSVR2 works for PC said there's so many workarounds that you have to do to the point where it'd be too expensive for Sony to even want to do that route. And then some people are saying maybe it's going to be a VR app that links to the PC, and I don't know what the plan's going to be. I really don't. I don't think it's going to be another third-party app on the console. I really don't, because I don't think they'll want to put that firmware on there as opposed to making it so there's an adapter to work with the PC. But I'm interested to see what route they will take for it. But
This is it. It's been a good thing of speculation, because the wording of it, because they literally just say
it's very poor. Yeah,
they just say, we're pleased to share that we're currently testing the ability for PSVR2 players to access additional games on PC to offer even more game variety in addition to the PSVR2 titles available through PS5. We hope to make support available in 2024, so stay tuned for more updates. Now, I don't know if it's just me being stupid, but I feel like that can mean one of two things, or perhaps both. Either it means that if you are on your PS5 with PSVR2, you're going to get access to PC VR games, or it's going to mean that you plug in your PSVR2 into your PC, and then you can play. Well, you can play your games on your PS5 catalog, or is it just you know is there going to be a crossover, or is it could be any of those. Actually, it's three things, isn't it? It's like PS5 catalog, PC catalog. Is there a crossover? This is a great, and the thing about the negativity is, like, this is something I've just noticed more and more. This, having been on the other side from being a consumer of PSVR2 content or PSVR content to now being a creator of one, is people complain about wanting something. PlayStation makes steps towards expanding the ecosystem, and then people say, "Oh, this is a negative thing," and this is a sign of weakness. And the whole thing about future proofing and that PSVR2 is going to hold up for many, many years. It's been 1 year. Like, it's a significant year. We're going to look back and go, it came out and then there was PC support. Like, it's not really like it's the first. It's been a year. Like, we're still in the super early days, and so there's a strategy, and their priorities, in my opinion, for the first year was increasing uptake of PlayStation 5 consoles. Because it's like 1 in 50 people who own a PS5 get if we're guessing it's going to be like 1 million sold, are getting PSVR2s. They've just been trying to get headsets out the door, and there were some people going, PC support should have been available at launch. I was someone who was surprised that not to be the case, but I also understand it as a part of PlayStation strategy. You can scale up, as in do it PS5 only and then to PC. You can't do it the other way around, and so you just want to sell headsets and PS5s, and then once you've got that ecosystem and solid games, you then spread it out. So, look, they're a multi-billion-dollar organisation. They're going to have some pretty good research in marketing, which I think a lot of people often oversee with Sony. They're not just sticking their finger in the air and going, "Let's try this." Like, they understand their market more than any of us do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you just look at PS5 from where it started to now, you've got things like the well, the PS Plus has been completely revamped. You've got the Portal. We've got the PS5 Pro rumours coming later this year, which seems like it's less and less of a rumour now, and more of a dead cert that's going to happen. You've got the kind of Edge controllers. This the kind of ecosystem has evolved so much in a hardware and sort of software and the subscriptions and stuff, the whole ecosystem. And you see moves where they're putting more and more of their games on PC, and obviously with Helldivers' massive success on PC and PS5, they've got to be thinking, well, why don't we put GT7 and let people play that on their PC, and if they want to use a headset to play that in VR as well on their PC, I mean, that would be a great kind of way to get people to adopt it, to take the game off on PC. And Call of the Mountain as well, that deserves people to play that. They should not be stuck on one platform. As many people as possible should be able to play that game, because VR needs as many people as possible to play these games that people make.
Especially the multiplayer ones. I think of some that I enjoy, and just hardly anyone's on them because it's there's no crossplay. A game that I loved at launch was Knock, the sort of Rocket League with a bow and arrow, and it just didn't have. It sort of died out pretty quickly. But then there was crossplay, and then they had a big surge of is it Meta Plus or Quest Plus?
Yeah, it went on Meta Plus.
Yeah.
I think it was either this month or last month.
Right.
Meta Plus.
And
I haven't played it still.
Yeah, Knock has a really cool social space. Granted, it's full of squeakers.
It will be because of the crossplay. It's just how it works. Sadly, whenever you crossplay with Quest, you're going to have that.
It was a term I only discovered recently, and I was like, I get it.
Yeah, it's an accurate term. It's an accurate one, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, God, I'm not playing Breaches again for that reason.
Yeah, Breaches is 50-50, but it's I don't know.
It's rough.
I'm trying my best not to criticise too much, because I absolutely love that game. But
same.
Every time I join a party chat on that, or in game chat, and there's just people just all screaming, I'm like, I want tactics, and I'm not getting this from you guys. So I just mute them all. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going on my own.
But the best game we had was the guy who knew best, who kept telling us that we were all using the wrong guns and come and tell us what gun we should be using, and you're like.
He was pointing at Alex's menu, like, choose this one here, choose this one. Alex was like, no, I'm gonna pick this one. And he's like, no, it's the wrong gun. You've done it all wrong. You just shouting at him.
And don't do that. You're being too noisy.
Yeah. Crouch, don't walk, don't climb that wall there. They'll be through there. And I was like, dude, this is their first game. You're probably ruining this experience for them completely. I'm trying to get them to stay on it. And you're pushing them off.
Yeah.
I mean, you have no idea how we approach these games. We do not play them too seriously. You do not want us on your team. Yeah. I was trying
my best to get to Alex to try and get some enjoyment for this. He was just getting this American bloke just shouting at him the whole time. And I was like, yeah, he's never going to play this again with me, no matter how much I ask. And then we just spent 50 minutes in the lobby just throwing these little marbles against the wall and trying to play catch with them instead.
Yeah.
That was the highlight of the
That was the fun bit of it,
yeah.
Right. Well, let's talk about what we want to see then, either in terms of sort of games or changes or what we want to see on the headset. Before we do, though, just like to say to everyone, if they want to support us, they can give the podcast a sub on the service they're using. And if they're watching on YouTube, we'll never get anywhere close to Myles' subs, but if you could like and subscribe to us, that would be good. And why not leave us a review too, because that's nice. And the comments as well, they're always nice. Follow us on Twitter at CrossbuttonVR and at the Crossplayers. And if you really want to show the love, do so via patreon.com/the Crossplayers. And for £2 a month, you can help us produce the show. Join our lovely little WhatsApp group. And who knows, maybe you could end up like Reese and end up hosting the show with the rest of us.
Who knows?
Hope not.
You don't want another Essex person there, do you?
No.
Yeah, I have to start doing a kind of competition to see who can be a host. But yeah, so what do we want to see then? And I guess, without saying Astrobot, come on, answer the question without using the words Astrobot.
Well, okay, well, Alex is out then.
Yeah.
I want to see, there's one major thing I want to see, and that's spare controllers. I don't matter how many times I tweet this out, I shout, I will stand on the rooftop of my own house screaming for it one day. It needs to happen, because the amount of times I've hit my controllers on the wall, clothes hooks, everything. I've got marks on them now. Yeah, I've probably done that before as well, but I think it was when I was playing Tiger Blade and I hit it on the wall and I was like, oh no, my controller, and I saw a mark on it. So ever since then I'm like, I definitely need a second pair, just for the peace of mind. They don't seem like they're on their way out, but I just want the peace of mind of it. Other than that, I just want them to do more marketing. I know we're all arguing for first party titles and things like that, but I also don't think they market the device enough. You see Meta on Twitter, and they literally post out every few days a new game that's coming, or a game that's came out a week ago, and they hype this game up constantly with different parts of gameplay. You don't see any of that from Sony, to the point where a game comes out and then within a week it's just lost the ether. No one knows about that game anymore because they've not pushed it. And at the end of the day, they should be, because it's on their store. And I don't know if that means that the developers have got to pay an extra fee to kind of get them to do that. I don't know what the legality is behind it, but at the same point, a lot of games come out and then within a week they're just forgotten. So I would like to see a bit more marketing in that sense.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because the way I always see it with PlayStation, their marketing is they kind of treat PSVR2 as another bit of hardware, like I don't know if it was the Vita or the Portal, but VR isn't. It's its own gaming system with its own community, and I agree with you completely, Reece, on that, which is they need to amplify the fans. I mean, to be fair, PlayStation UK were excellent at launch because they gave a lot of PSVR2 headsets to a lot of PlayStation influencers who weren't VR gamers, and I was actually happy to see that because they were experiencing, Horizon Call the Mountain, and
like
I have to admit,
Osborne.
Second,
like Ozzy Osbourne.
Like Ozzy Osbourne, yeah.
Exactly.
those as well. But
I forgot about that.
But there were a lot of like UK, like the actual like PlayStation content creators as well, like who haven't really done a lot of content since. And to be fair, like I'm not here to do a judgment on that. It might be because PlayStation keep engaging with them, and it's like doing promoting PlayStation Plus and those kind of things. And also making content, as you all know, for VR is a lot more difficult than making content for flat screen. In terms of capturing, especially if you want to do a vertical video, like how do you align everything, not to get too technical about it all. But yeah, when it comes to marketing, you just want to see PlayStation just really be a champion for it. And on Without Parole the other night, I was saying that I kind of wish PlayStation had a Twitter or X account for PlayStation VR, because I understand that when they do state of plays, there's always been that nervousness of as soon as you put a VR game, loads of people switch off. You see in the live chat people going, "Oh, I hate VR" and stuff like that. And,
you do see a lot of hate.
Yeah, exactly, and it can sort of kill the flow. And I think that the last state of play, they actually nailed the overall state of play format. I thought was excellent, and the VR inclusion felt like it fitted. But I do think they should have a PlayStation VR social feed that they can retweet on PlayStation's one occasionally, but just to keep it active, to sort of say look, we are here, we believe in this. And also I would say to that, and it's no shade at particular games, and I'm not going to name any, actually I'll name one of them, they do these things where they'll say, here's VR, and they'll list 4 games, and 2 of them are the like really good ones, and then 2 of them are like, okay, I'm not sure that's one of them was Project Wingman, which I've always felt like that was very peculiar with its marketing and what it turned out to be, like not a full-fledged game. And that's no fault to the devs necessarily. I mean, I don't know how it all works in that, but the fact that that is held up above things like Red Matter or I'm sort of lost for words of all the amazing games there are,
Vampire Masquerade, we can go from be all night at that point.
Absolutely, there's so much, and I just feel there's a disconnect. But I also think just internally at Sony, VR is a part of a marketing department. They do different campaigns, and having worked in marketing departments, you're not necessarily passionate, a super fan of it. You're just like, I like PlayStation, and this is a really cool thing we're doing. But there's a big difference from thinking this is really cool and being like, this is the future. We need to really champion it. And by the way, I don't know who does those efforts, and Millicent Thomas, who is head of influencers in the UK, who reached out to me at starts. She was amazing, and she's been amazing for VR, and actually one of the few that I've seen from PlayStation that's really championing it, and so I've got huge love for her. The only other thing I'd say just quickly on the controllers, agree. I thought it was going to be like a couple of months after launch they'd come out. We're a year after, and a DualSense controller, you get a spare for charging and stuff. And as you say, for sense controllers, you're swinging, you're physical. They get thrown around, and sometimes you knock them together when you're trying to clap in game, and you can't because of the little guards on them and stuff like that. And I've had a few bits where the black strip on it has clipped out, and I keep thinking, no, is it broken? It's just popped out a bit. But
I had that the other week, and I panicked as well. So that was the first time I had that, and I'm wondering if it's because of what the price would be of them individually, and it would bring into question what they're pricing the headset as well. Like, I don't know. At the same point, I feel like that's not really a concern, because I feel like if you want something that much, you're going to pay for it.
Agreed.
And And it's like with the Quest 2, I know Quest 3 hasn't done spare controllers yet, but like if you look at the Quest Pro controllers, they're £300.
Are they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, they have inside-out tracking on them, they have cameras on the controller, so that's a bit more, in depth. But I think the Quest 2 controllers, for a spare, I think it was £80. So I mean, even if they release both of them for 150 quid,
the Edge controller's £200, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'd expect to pay around that for it.
Yeah,
they're very high-tech things, right?
Yeah, I'd be happy with that. And it's, again, I don't want to break my controllers after the warranty's now gone now. So if they break now, I've got to go out and spend 500 quid to carry on playing my VR now. And I don't want that. I don't think anyone wants that. I'd rather spend 200 quid than 500.
So I think this is top of my list, and what I want to see in year 2, or whilst we're talking about price, is just an overall price cut. I think the price is prohibitive for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people just assume it's that kind of early adopter tax that you expect to pay. And we haven't seen a price cut for PS5. The opposite, in fact, it's gone up in price. But that's obviously a very different market. They're in a very different position in the market. And also, I think that position in the market, coming back to what you said about marketing, I think they're just so used to being massively dominant. They don't really need to market PS5 that much. It's for years it was just sold out. They couldn't make them quick enough, so they didn't really need to market it at all. But PS5, I don't think they're kind of used to the fact that Quest is a much bigger competitor for them in that space, and they're just like, well, we're Sony, we're PlayStation. We don't, people don't need to know who we are. Everyone knows who we are already. But it's like, well, actually, you need to come out with a bit of swagger and say that you can only play games on PSVR2. You can't play these sorts of things elsewhere. You can't play Resident Evil 4. You cannot play anything like GT7 unless you've got a very expensive PC rig. But even then, you're not going to have access to those exclusives for now. There are things you can get and a level of fidelity you can only get on that, and they need to be making that a lot clearer to people. But I do think the price it puts people off, and the fact it's more than the console is, and I think it's probably now time to shave off £50 to £100.
Yeah, I'm with you completely. This is actually a slight disagreement I had with Brian on the show the other night, which was, and actually I agree with him. The idea that like it costing more than the console is a criticism he thinks is ridiculous because it's it's got so much tech in it, all things, which I agree with, but I disagreed in the sense of no, that is the sentiment. When I've spoken to people. And it's like, how much is it? Whoa, isn't that more than the PS5 that it plugs into? It just doesn't sound good. And I don't think PSVR2 needs to compete with Quest. I don't in price. But if you can get it under the £500 mark, $499 sounds a lot better than $550. It sounds more than £50 difference or £51 difference, And I do think it needs to get under the £500 mark.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think when you talk about obviously the price increase on the PS5, they have been fairly aggressive in reducing that recently, even with like the slim version and the previous version before. There's been quite aggressive price cuts there because they've been clearly trying to hit a target of how many PS5s that they want to ship. So if they want to go and ship these units, then they can afford to go and take this money off of the PSVR2. And maybe when they now appreciate they're not going to hit the targets that they thought they were going to hit with these PS5s, that they might now say, right, it's time to actually take the focus on that off of that and put it onto the PSVR2 and try and get that conversion rate up. I do think it is. I wouldn't say the price is prohibitive, but I think there is that psychological thing. Was why is this more than this console when it's only then I can play a subset of what I can play on the console with this? Yeah. And it's not a peripheral. It's as you say, it is its own gaming. It's not a console, but it is its own gaming system. But that doesn't mean from a psychological perspective that's how a lot of the mainstream consumer will see it.
Because I think the PSVR 1 took a couple of years before it got a price cut as well, because even at release that was quite a hefty price. I can't remember if it was even more than what the PSVR 2 is at one point.
The time you add in the cameras and the controllers, I think it was.
You had to add everything on it. And the thing is, as soon as they started using the Move controllers, they upped the price of them, and people, you couldn't buy them cheap used. They were £100. Literally, you used to be able to buy them £10, and they went up to £100. And I think when I bought my PSVR 1, I think I must have spent, I think it was probably close to £600 with Resident Evil 7, and I'll be honest with you, I loved it, but I didn't get the feeling from it that I got from it now, like I did with the PSVR 2 when I first put it on. I didn't get that blown away feeling. I mean, I did with Resident Evil 7. That was an experience that I would love to go through again, but it was one of them things where I feel like I was happy with the money that I've spent on the PSVR 2. But again, I think like you two said, you both went to a demo thing of the PSVR 1. We've not had any of that for the PSVR 2. There's nowhere people can test this thing and go, oh, actually, I see the potential of this. Whereas people could do that with the PSVR 1. But, I mean, obviously with you two, it kind of made you both go, actually, no, that's not potential for me. That's something I should avoid. But obviously you kind of done a 360 and now you thought the tech was there. And as you've clearly seen, it is. So I do think maybe they should do more demos, and I know you've got EGX and things like that, but I think at the same time, maybe certain games that are being shown at EGX is not what people want to see as well. They're not Sony's games, are they?
Yeah, and Sony weren't at EGX. It was left to
exactly.
York was there with T-Smash.
So you had PSVR 2 to obviously be played there, like, you know, Toy was it Toy Hearts? Was it Tiny
Tin Hearts?
Tin Hearts.
Yes, that's the one. Tin Hearts. Yeah, close. I always forget the name of that one, but yeah. So you had PSVR 2 to try out there, but again, I feel like if they did a booth with Call of the Mountain, people could try that out and be like, okay, this is.
You've got the perfect demo there. You've got a 5-minute river cruise that you could just turn people through.
It's such a tech demo in a sense. It's not a tech demo because it's a full-fledged game, but at the same point, that right there, I think would push so many systems for it, because it is cheaper to go for a PSVR 2 and a PC than a gaming PC and, you know, all that other stuff. It's definitely a great alternative, but I do think they need to kind of maybe do a little reshift of what their plans are with it and how to market it. So, yeah.
I think related to price, I think PS Plus, it is a crime that there are no PSVR 2 games on PS Plus. Like, I pay my subscription, I need it to play these online games like Legendary Tales and stuff. Why are there no games on it? It's just like if you buy a PS5 just because you want to play VR stuff on it, there's just that PS Plus, you have to have it for multiplayer, and they're not giving you anything. And there's so many games now, it's just a criminal they can't put at least half a dozen on, even if it's on the extra tiers. Put it on the premium tier if you must.
Because they had Humanity, didn't they? And that was it. There was nothing else to kind of go from that.
Yeah,
so, it is a shame. But again, another thing you said, going back to about like the Quest games that have been ported over, and you saying that they're better to be played on this. I think when we discussed like Dead Hook previously, we kind of said they should do a post saying best played here. I don't know if that's kind of a bit partially aggressive in a sense, but it's not false. Like there's ways to word it, and I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to say, this game's better played here or best played here. I don't know how to word it in the sense it doesn't seem aggressive to Quest, but it's factual. It's one of them things, isn't it? And I'm not, like Myles said, we're not trying to pit the two systems together, because I do think they have a place to exist together. But at the same point, you are going from like a mobile headset to a headset that's connected to a system, and it is true, like you said, they are better played on there.
Yeah, I've added to my wish list. I keep on a notepad the suggestion about the PlayStation Plus idea, because it was the last year or two of PSVR that every month one of the games was a VR game.
Yeah.
And
yes,
I think that it's a really good idea that they could do now, because something I will say is we're still in the early days, sound like a broken record. This is going to be a slow burn, because you have to experience it to believe it. Every time I have friends over, I put them in the headset, and I've had friends that have gone away. So one of them bought a PS5 and a PSVR 2. I know not many people in that situation. I couldn't believe it. I was like, Jesus Christ, I hope you don't regret it. But the value proposition, the longer PSVR 2 is out, the more valuable it is, because there's a bigger catalogue of games. Like, that's not going to change. So, like, if PlayStation did nothing other than just keep releasing games, the value of this headset is actually going to keep going up. But what you say about PlayStation Plus, I think that even if now, and there would be indie developers that would love their games.
Yeah.
If every month, or it was once a quarter, there was a PlayStation, one of your monthly games was a PSVR 2 title, what it means is you have PS5 flat screen gamers who don't own it that have this catalogue, and they're like, you know what? I've got like 6 PSVR 2 games. Now's the time to jump in. Do you know what I mean? Like, it makes that case.
As well, yeah.
Literally the reason I bought a Vita, I think, because I was like, I've got like half a dozen games here.
Right.
It was the crossplay thing, wasn't it? I think that was the same reason.
Yeah.
And I do think this is a big part of the strategy, which is you've got to think about, like, what are the different types of customers. Up to now, it's been about getting PSVR players to PSVR 2 for the most part. And that is why we pay a premium price, as you say. It's adoption tax. I love that phrase. And then... And now it's like, how do you convert the next people, the people that are on the fence? And it is going to be to do with price. and it is also going to be the experiencing it to believe it. And I don't know if it was at like the Tokyo show or something. I'd only seen photos, to be fair, so I wasn't there, but I did see them have a Gran Turismo 7 booth, and I hate to criticise because I know marketing departments work hard and stuff, but it just looked like they just thrown a load of chairs down, and like it didn't seem like, and it was like one of those the classic sort of the flag stands that come up. It's like a strip.
Yeah.
It was like one of them, and then you see what Jorg does with C-Smash VRS and Rapid Eye Movers and that, and they build the full experience, and they wave the flag better than anyone does for PSVR2, and it goes back to what I said at the beginning about the devs and the communities are really doing the heavy lifting, but we might start seeing some massive changes. Can I throw something into the wish list?
No, please do.
I want PlayStation to establish a Blue Point Games type studio for VR. So Blue Point Game Studio, for those watching that are unfamiliar, although you probably know it as soon as I say it, they worked on like Shadow of the Colossus remastered and Demon Souls remake for PS5. They've developed a reputation for just being like excellent at making remasters and remakes. They're great at porting games, and that is what they do. They're working on an original, not an original IP. I can't remember. There's a certain wording.
Like original content or something, isn't it? Yeah.
Original content. So it's like, what
you're
working
like that.
But my wish list is I want PlayStation to establish devs, and they kind of do these partnerships. You've got Fire Sprite that obviously did the Persistence, which I want them to bring the enhanced edition to PSVR2.
Yes,
they told me the other day they don't have any plans as of yet, which doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything.
No, it doesn't. It just means they can't tell you.
Exactly. They literally could be looking over as they're about to reply and go, "Yeah."
But they're laughing while they're talking about, we don't have any plans yet.
We don't have any plans to
next few months.
Point out this, yeah.
The next day.
But obviously they worked on Call of the Mountain with Guerrilla Games, so there are those kind of partnerships. But I'm talking about a studio that is like, you're going to work with our first or third parties and teach them, because a big expensive part of the process is not just developers going, do we want to allocate resources here? It's like, who are we going to bring in to tool up on the best way to make VR games? Because it is a whole other animal. There's all these learnings and that. And I just feel like that's the way you do it. Sony have always been great at establishing and nurturing talent, and they need to do that. And I think, going on from that on the wish list, I think that every quarter there should be a AAA release. Just Call of the Mountain. It doesn't have to be a first party, but just something that's on the map, that every quarter there are these big hits, and then once a year, one of those four is like a first party, like a Last of Us or a North Star, so that throughout the year, when you have those lulls in the months, you're going, games are good, but we've got the Last of Us VR coming at the end of the year. Or if it's a good month, you go, this is so great, and we've got the Last of Us coming out. Like, you just need something for people to look forward to. And I think one of the issues with PSVR2 overall, with its marketing and everything, there's a real sense of like, how invested are they in this? Are they playing defense? Are they doing this because they're just being demanded of it? Like, are they kind of just... Some people say, do they even care about it? And you just want Sony to stop saying, we're not just going to mention games in a state of play, and as you say, sometimes it seems forgotten afterwards, and kind of like they're just replaying the greatest hits of the launch. But instead going, no, this is the plan for the year. And that's kind of... To be fair, a lot of these issues are issues with the flat screen games. We don't really know what's the future with PS5 games, and when people say, where are the first party games? Exactly. We don't know that with the flat screen games as well. So it's not exclusively a VR thing. And if anything, VR has delivered more within its ecosystem, for the player base and that, than flat screen has, which is
for the whole year, definitely.
Yeah, I think in your first year, if you look at, you were talking about those big releases, I think there were 4 or 5 tentpole releases in the first year.
Definitely.
You have to presume there are in the second year. I mean, they've obviously announced Metro would you'd count as one of those for sure. But I feel like with the flat games, Sony studios are making flat games. Obviously they are. You kind of hope that someone somewhere is making a first party PSVR2 games, but there isn't that purity in the same way. So I think for me, it would be good if they said, we do have PlayStation Studios software in development, and we'll announce it later. That I think would go a long way, just to say, take all the time you need to make the game. Don't rush it out by all means, but just to show people that you are still committed to this in the future. I think that would help people. And I think porting over a lot of the PSVR1 games like Farpoint and Blood and Truth and stuff, and obviously Astro, would be great to see as well.
And that's the other thing, is there's still space for PSVR games to be ported to PSVR2, because we wouldn't want them all just put during launch. It would get way too crowded. We had a lot of games at launch, and I kind of like, if they leave it long enough, there'll be those of us like Blood and Truth going, we get to play it again. Like, it's been long enough that even people that owned it, want to jump back in and complete it again and what have you, and that. So
I would 100% jump back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Alex and I didn't play PSVR 1, so these are all going to be new games for us. And it's a bit like
this is it.
Wii U to Switch thing. There's great games there that a whole new audience of people want to find them. And again, VR is VR. You make these games, and if they're good games, you've just got to give as many opportunities for people to play them as you can, because it's just a criminal for anything to be stuck and people to not play them and stuff, because people need to experience it and learn from it and enjoy it.
And that's another smart part of the marketing, is you bring out ports that people that own PSVR2 didn't have PSVR, and the marketing is the community that did play PSVR going, oh my god, it's coming back, and then people that haven't played it go, oh wow, they're really excited. Yeah, it was good for this and this and this. It's kind of like with Wanderer. Like, for people that have not experienced Wanderer, like, oh my goodness, if it was exactly the same game, you're in for a treat. But my goodness, we're all in for a treat, and that's kind of
I think that's amazing. Quite exciting.
Yeah,
definitely. But I think you could agree as well, is like with the PSVR 1, and that it was pretty much indie developers carrying that as well for its lifespan. Yes, there was first party titles. You had Astrobot, you had a few other games here and there, but there wasn't anything like over the top, mind blowing like you did have with GT7, Call of the Mountain, Synapse. You've not had anything that's kind of made you go, whoa, this is insane. I mean, sure, you had Resident Evil, and you did have a few really standout titles. So I think a lot of the claims to say that they're not caring about it, I don't think that's the case, and I'm really optimistic for its lifespan, if I'm honest.
Yeah, you make a really good point, Miles, but saying it's year one. Like, they're going to have a whole 5-10 year roadmap for what they're going to do with VR and what their plans are. And I'm sure PS6 and PC will come into that, and PS5 Pro. So we're probably just in the foothills of what they're doing with this thing.
Can I add another little request in? Just one.
Please,
since I wasn't allowed to say Astrobot. I mean, we know that. I say that every week anyway. But I want other functionality. I want to be able to go and watch 3D movies. That's a good shout. I want all these other things that you could do in PSVR 1 and you still can't do, like kind of YouTube VR, that kind of functionality through it. It's like we were talking about us playing like Forever Bowl and Cornhole VR on Quest, because you've got like a YouTube platform that you can go and you put your own soundtrack on. You've got all of that, like a bit more interconnectivity in some of these experiences would go a long way. And I think there's so much potential for that screen. Like, I want to watch Avatar in 3D in that headset, because that's going to be the best way to watch it, and I can't.
I think I watched Avatar 3D on the PSVR 1 actually, so
And I assume when it comes to like 3D Blu-rays, and sorry if I'm throwing you in it and no one knows the answer to this, but like, is it just a software issue, like that you could actually make it happen? It's nothing from the hardware side like that.
I think it's just software. I think it's
software. I think they could probably fix that with an update, maybe a little bit tweaking here and there.
But just on Quest, you've got that DAZN app where you can watch boxing, and that is like, it just baffles me that Sony is such a kind of entertainment corporation. They've got music and movies and stuff. Like, why can't I watch gigs in VR? Why can't I sit? They've got such a catalogue of artists signed to Sony Records. Like, why can't I go and watch them? And then they've got such a Sony movies as well, even though most of their movies are pretty shite. But still, they could do kind of behind the scenes in VR. You could be sat there like watching a director scene, behind the scenes footage and stuff. There's so many kind of cool ideas that you could do with it, or like sporting events in VR. I'd love it, and there's nothing like that. And I kind of assumed there would be. And there was a lot of video, just VR content on PSVR 1, and I was really surprised actually that none of that came across on
to
PSVR 2. And I wonder if just so few people used it, they thought it's not bother,
right?
It's not worth investing in. But it's a shame.
Yeah, and maybe that will change with Apple Vision Pro, like kind of showing, it's changing the zeitgeist of like why you would use a headset and stuff like that, like to watch TV and stuff. And I do think having some kind of hub, I think using the PS5 menu is fine, but I think there'd be a good option, like we talk about PlayStation Home quite a lot, and having something like that where you can interact, especially because recently Rec Room has kind of expressed that there's no plans for it to come to PSVR2, which I'm super gutted about, because I thought that was a proper metaverse sort of experience. But yeah, as you say, Sony has all the properties with movies, being able to watch films with people. That'd be a good revenue stream. And there was one of, PlayStation are always really good at making their commercials with their surreal sort of representations of gaming culture. And there was one, and I'm going to sound probably really batshit saying this, because I'm pretty sure I am remembering it right. It was of some guy that I think he went to a butcher's and then he was bringing some meat home, and then he basically feeds it under the door, and I think it's the idea that there's a zombie under there or something. But when he goes into his home, there are like these shelves all around him of like items from iconic PlayStation games and that. And I always just felt that is what you want in VR, like somewhere maybe to stack all your platinum trophies, or if you don't like trophies, collectibles.
Well, they've got that PS
your
Stars thing,
PlayStation
haven't they?
Well, I was about to say, PlayStation Stars, you
Yeah.
have collectibles, like having, because they are 3D, like you can spin them around and look at them, but to have it where you can put them up around you and customize your PlayStation Home. It doesn't need to be exactly what PlayStation Home was. I just feel like that is something else that would be special. But again, as is the case with all these things, it's a question of priorities, and I think that everyone's a bit hesitant at the moment because of the metaverse is so close yet so far. It's requiring a lot of investment. What Meta are doing, what Epic Games are doing. Obviously, Disney have just invested a lot into Epic Games. Sony have put a lot of investment into Epic Games as well. And so maybe a part of PlayStation's sort of calculations is it's not on us to create it. Epic Games are way ahead of us. When the time is right, we can then obviously incorporate that and into it. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, it'll be fascinating to see how things do evolve, and it's good that I think we all agree that there is a decent future ahead of it, despite all the kind of doom and gloom that some people have for it.
Unnecessary doom and gloom.
Yeah, I think it's highly unnecessary.
Yeah,
How likely do we think Astrobot... Okay, so 2 questions. How likely is Astrobot going to... a new one coming out this year? And then secondly, what is it going to be? Because I don't think it's going to be VR only because of how well the Playroom did. So I think it's either going to be hybrid or it's going to be flat screen only. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
It's surely going to be hybrid. I think it's going to be hybrid.
I think they've got to do hybrid just to kind of give homage to where Astrobot came from. Like, I feel like they need to do that because he carried PSVR 1.
Yeah. So
it's probably a high statement maybe he did.
Unless they'd make it a flat game with some VR levels, it doesn't, a world that's just only in VR that you can only play with that, and then maybe if they bundled it with the first one, you kind of remastered.
Okay, that probably
then they could do something there. But I don't know. Does it compromise the game design for flat if you're trying to play it in VR? Does hybrid? Does that kind of compromise both designs? Because with a platform, there's something so kind of, I don't know, like. Could you have a really good... I mean, I've not played Astrobots on PSVR 1, so I don't know how different it plays to the one on PS5. Is there that difference in design? Would that be hard to merge the two?
I think it could. I do think it could.
Yeah, the DualSense controller can't... So you can use it for PSVR 2 games, but it's not actually a presence because there's no tracking. The thing with Astrobot on PSVR was you were moving it around and like using certain abilities to like throw ninja stars,
the rope,
and stuff like that.
Bubble gun or whatever it was. There was loads of different things, weren't there, to defeat the bosses and
so
it was such a cool concept as well. Where you put the controller inside that armoured shell and it kind of shaped around your controller.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love just that game to come remastered for PSVR 2 because that game looked great in the headset. The boss battles were just really amazing.
Everyone says that was the killer app, the best game on PSVR 1. So
yeah, it was great.
If that doesn't come across, I'll be devastated.
We'll be very sad. We'll be very sad.
We won't hear the end of it from Alex.
That and Assassin's Creed Nexus are my 2 must-haves this year, please. I think you're very likely to get some some Astrobot something, because it was there at launch. They can't take that much to make. It's not like making a new God of War game where they're kind of epic and massive and huge.
Maybe this one is going to be.
Cutscenes and stuff. Well, maybe it's a whole new take on it.
They're going to
reboot it. It's a gritty origin
50-hour platformer.
No,
it's an origin story.
Origin story to Astrobot. How did he become the Astrobot?
Yeah.
Is it a person inside there after all?
Yeah.
They say that, but they definitely would do that.
In VR, you're soldering the microchip and you're like making all the.
Like the Seaton toy soldiers.
Yes.
Right, we could keep going all night with this, but we need to wrap things up. Any final points that anyone would like to make? Myles, you go first. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, we've gone through it all. I guess just to say that it's been an amazing first year. There are literally games for every type of gamer out there, unless you're someone that unfortunately gets incredibly motion sick and can't do VR. But I do think that in itself is improving as well. And I think it's going to be a really significant year for VR in the space. We've got Apple Vision Pro moving in now. Obviously, we've got the Quest 3. There seems to be a lot more cross-play. And then if the PS5 Pro comes out, that's going to be excellent for the VR as well. So, the thing is, we always go like, oh, this announcement just made. Like, some people will be going, is this all it is for like year 2? It's like, they've literally, this is the starting pistol. Mm-hmm. We're going to have so many surprises this year, and I'm excited to see what comes next.
For sure. Amen. Well, that's a good point to leave it, I think. Thanks everyone for listening. And if you've enjoyed the episode, please do tell your family and friends about us. If you want to get more involved, please jump into our Discord and say hello. Thanks everyone that's done so already. And thanks to our patrons for supporting the work we do. Finally, a massive thank you to you, Myles, for taking the time to join us this evening. It's been awesome having you on.
Dude, love talking PSVR2, and thanks for having me. Like, this is wicked.
No, it's been great. You are welcome anytime. I've been your host, Laurie. These two have been Alex and Reese, and we will see you again next time. Until then, it's goodbye.